What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello.
That was weird. That came out weird. I don't know why that came out like that. I was just like staring at my dogs, who are all in the room with us today because we don't have anybody to watch them. And for some reason, our littlest one has become such a jerk. Like
Sophie.
She's trying to fight our oldest one. So our littlest one is 4 and the oldest one is 11. And the 4-year-old keeps doing some bullshit. Like she's about ready to go to training.
And Olive's just a perfect angel.
Don't let her fool you. Olive had to $3,500 was spent to make Olive a perfect angel, and she's still not a perfect angel.
Perfect compared to
She's a lot better, but anyways. Nothing on my end of anything new true crime related.
Except this episode is not brought to you by Sierra, but was picked by Sierra. Because TikTok, thank you. I was scrolling through TikTok one day and there was a weird ass fucking movie scene that decided to come across my TikTok, and I was like, that's fucking weird. Looked up the movie. It's called Lolita 1997.
I mean, when I looked up, it's just Lolita, but it was
when I looked it up, it
in
had
1997.
So the movie's called Lolita, and so I found it on Tubi. That's where I watched it for free.
Yep.
Watched the whole movie and said, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yep.
Spoiler, at the end of the movie, it does a credit as like, oh, so-and-so died, this year, so-and-so died this year. So then I thought, fuck, is this based off a true story? Like, what the fuck? So I looked it up. Lolita, the movie, is based off a book that's also called, I'm pretty sure Lolita, or maybe it's something called different, but it's based on a book. And the book is based on a true crime, and that's the true crime that we're going to talk about.
Yes. And
I didn't do the research, though. Trisha still did the research for it also. I don't know how exactly it relates to Lolita.
Well, and one big spoiler alert, the movie is nothing at all like the real story.
Yeah, Trisha did tell me
literally
like,
nothing at all like the real story.
Basically said fuck you to the crime.
Yeah, so they just
almost like they glorified it.
We'll get into it. Let's get into it. Okay, so what we are talking about is a man named Frank LaSalle. Now, this happened in June 1948. Florence Salle, her nickname was Sally Horner, was abducted. Now, Frank LaSalle was her abductor, and she was held captive for 21 months. So first, we'll do a little bit of background on Florence. So Florence Horner, again, nicknamed Sally, she was born April 18th, 1937 in Camden, New Jersey. Her parents were Russell and Ella Horner. Now, when Florence is 5 years old, Russell dies by suicide. And this leaves Ella to raise Florence on her own. Florence also has a half-sister who was older than her by quite some time. And so she was also responsible for helping to raise Florence. So Ella, her mom, actually was a seamstress and had a really hard time paying bills, raising. She did the best she could. Like, there was no abuse or anything like that. She literally was just trying to make ends meet while also raising Florence, and then also raising still Florence's sister. Now, Florence attended school at Northeast Elementary School. She was an honor student, and she was in the 5th grade when she was abducted. So there's not much to tell about her background other than that, because that's kind of where it starts. Now we're going to talk about Frank LaSalle. Oh, by the way, I'm going to spoil this right now and tell you that this is not a murder case. I forgot. I guess I should have said that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a murder case.
Nobody
dies because
people do die, but
right.
way later.
Nobody dies because of the abduction. So this is the first time ever that we have done something that was not murder based.
Basically, we did it because I found out that this movie was based on a true, like a book.
Well, but it's true crime. Just because it's not murder, it doesn't mean it's
murder.
Not
is just
true
our
crime.
forte.
Yeah, it's just what we tend to gravitate towards. But it was actually refreshing doing something that didn't involve murder. I'm not gonna lie.
Still involves kid, which sucks, but.
So we're going to talk about Frank LaSalle. So Frank LaSalle, honestly, there was literally no information about his background from a child anyways. His younger years, like, just nobody knew anything about him. Now, the main thing is that people need to know about Frank LaSalle is that he was a pedophile, a convicted pedophile, and a con artist. And he had several aliases and several dates and years of birth. So he had all kinds of shit con artist to a T. So some of his aliases were Frank Warner, Frank Patterson, Frank Johnson, Frank LaPlante, Frank Robinson, Frank O'Keefe, Frank Fogg, Harry Patterson, and Jack O'Keefe. Now, throughout his life, he would actually fill out Social Security forms and sometimes prison intake forms, depending on if he was going to jail at the time or not. And he would fill them out with whatever alias he was at that time. And then he would give different dates of birth depending on what name he was using. Now, he would also give different versions of his parents' names as well. So he never told the truth of who he actually was.
That'd be kind of nice, though.
I know, right? He also would list different hometowns. So literally, if he would get booked into jail as Jack O'Keefe, he would list Jack O'Keefe's birthday, Jack O'Keefe's parents, Jack O'Keefe's birth town, which would be different than Frank LaSalle's birthday, Frank LaSalle's parents, Frank LaSalle's hometown. That's pretty genius. I'm not going to lie. Now, the most common name that he would use for his parents were Frank and Nora. So there is a thought that his parents' real names were Frank and Nora. And he would most commonly use the hometown as Chicago or Indianapolis. So again, it kind of makes you go, was he from one of those places? And the most common date of birth that he would use was May 27th. So again, suspicions that could be his real birthday. And then his birth year would vary. Here's what's crazy. His birth year would vary between 1890 and 1901. An 11-year fucking time span.
That seemed... So that's kind of a big age.
That is a big age.
And at least hit it between 5 years.
Now, there was also a claim that he had actually served time in the penitentiary between 1924 and 1928 at Leavenworth Penitentiary. So a 4-year time. However, no, Leavenworth is in
I was
New York
Leavenworth,
or
Washington.
No. It's in New York. I think it's in New York. It might be Chicago. Now, of course, when he was booked into that Leavenworth Penitentiary, it was under a false name. So it wasn't under Frank LaSalle, but it was under one of his aliases. Now, on July 31st, 1937, Frank actually marries a woman named Dorothy Mae Dare. And it was listed that he was 41 years old at the time and went by the name of Frank Fogg. Okay. Now, they married in Elkton, Maryland. And by the way, Dorothy was 17 years old.
That's fucking gross.
Okay.
Not a shocker, though.
Not a shocker. But again, he was by the name Frank Fogg, not even his real name. So most likely he probably was much older than 41, to be honest with you. Now, Dorothy's father finds out that Frank had been lying about who he was, and he actually tried to have him arrested. He called the cops. The cops showed up, and he's like, you need to arrest this man. He's not who he says he is. His name is not Frank Fogg, and he is not 41, and he's been with my daughter this whole time, who is 17 years old. Which also, I just want to side note real quick. There's no way this 41-year-old man looked like he was potentially under the age of 18, first of all. So, father of Dorothy, why didn't you have a problem with it when they got married? Because she's only 17. And also, I
don't know, though. Back in the day, some of those fucking pictures, it says they're 30-something. And I'm like, they look like they're a fucking baby.
You look at Frank, you're not feeling that way about Frank. That's for sure. All Frank actually has to do is he literally looks at the cops and he's like, yeah, she's my wife. You can't arrest me for being with my wife. And they're like, well, do you have a marriage certificate or something? And he's like, yeah. So he shows them the marriage certificate to prove they're married. And they're like, sorry, Dorothy's dad. They're married legally.
I mean, they're not wrong.
They're legally married. So there's nothing you can do about it. Now, in 1938, he is suspected of kidnapping and sex trafficking in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, this included the suspicions were enticing a minor, indecent assault, bigamy, check fraud, assault.
Fuck is bigamy?
I have no idea. I didn't look it up.
Oh, okay.
Assault and battery, hit and run, rape, and desertion of his second wife and daughter. So apparently at some point he gets married again.
Okay.
And has a child. And completely abandons them. Now,
I didn't even know that was a
back
crime.
in the day, yeah, it could have been. Now, in 1944, Frank is convicted for molestation and sexual assault of 5 underage girls that he had done this to in 1943. So again,
which back in 43 was the underage still 18, 18?
I don't know.
Or was it 16?
I have no idea, but obviously he.
I mean,
I
not
think
that it
all
makes
the
it
girls.
better or worse.
I think all the girls that he was charged with were under 15 years old.
Prepubescent.
Again, this was before he kidnapped or abducted Florence. So he's already now a convicted pedophile. Dorothy actually ends up filing for divorce the year after he's convicted, which, Dorothy, why did it take you so long? Like, why did he, like, the minute that my husband is arrested for pedophilia, bye-bye. Like, I'm not waiting that long. Now, Frank does get released from prison January 15th, 1948. Now, he only served a partial sentence for his fucking 5 years.
Of course he did.
But he only got 5 years for molesting 5 different girls. Jesus. He was at that, for that one, he actually served the time at Trenton State Prison, which is in New Jersey. This brings us to March 1948. So what did I say? He got out of jail January 15th of 1948. This is March of 1948. So he's only been out of prison for like a month and a half. Florence, she had been struggling to fit in with life. Like, she'd been struggling with life. She had been struggling to fit in at school because, again, at this point in her life, her father has been gone for like 6 years and her mother is just struggling to make ends meet. Her older sister is now married and pregnant, but still helping raise Florence. And she's just worried because her mom works a lot and her sister is waiting to have this baby. And she's just trying to live life as an 11-year-old, right? Like, she's just trying to live life. But also at the same time, she's also doesn't have very many friends and she just wants to fit in with all the girls at school. Well, there's like this girls club at her school that all the like popular girls are a part of. And so they basically tell Florence, like, listen, if you want to be a part of our club, we dare you to steal a 5-cent notebook from the local Woolsworth in Camden, New Jersey, where they lived. And she was like, all right, bet. Like, if that means I can be your friend, sure. So she goes to this local Woolsworth. I can't say that damn name. It's Woolsworth. Woolsworths? I don't know. Never heard of it as a store. She goes to this local store. She goes up to this area where they have these notebooks, these little 5-cent notebooks, and she takes one. And in the middle of her taking this, she is actually approached by a man. Now, the man tells her, excuse me, I just saw what you did. I just saw that you're trying to steal, and I want you to know that I am an FBI agent, and I just watched you commit a crime. I'm going to have to take you across the street because across the street from this place was like a courthouse. I'm going to take you across the street. We're going to book you in, and we're going to send you off to a reform school because we don't play that game here. To which, of course, she starts to cry. She's upset and she's like, no, like, please don't. She's worried that she's going to bring grief to her mom, who already is struggling. She's worried that her older sister is going to have a lot of stress that's unnecessary before she has the baby. So she keeps telling this FBI officer, like, please, 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 like, I'm begging you. What can I do? Like, please do not do this. Like, my life, I was just trying to fit in with my friends, blah, blah, blah. Now, this man looks at her and says, all right, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that out of the kindness of my motherfucking heart, I will not bring you over to the courthouse and I will not send you to reform school. But Florence, you need to continue to check in with me periodically because I want to make sure that you're staying on the straight. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And he's like, if I need you for something, you gotta work with me here. And she's like, okay, that's fine. Well, this FBI agent, if you haven't figured it out yet, is Frank LaSalle. And he's also not a fucking FBI agent. Okay, he's not. So from that point, again, March, he kind of like starts stalking her. He like watches what school she goes to, starts to learn her schedule, follows her where she goes with her friends, figures out where she lives. And then he approaches her in June of 1948 and he tells her, I've got a change of plans. We will not be, no longer, or for me to keep you from going to this reform school, I have something else that we need to do. And she's like, okay, what's that? And he's like, well, the government is sending me off to Atlantic City for an assignment and you have to come with me because I can't keep my eye on you if you're not in Atlantic City with me. To which she responds with like, okay. And then he's like, all you need to do is go tell your mom that I have invited you to Atlantic City, but I am one of your friends from school. I'm one of their parents and we're going on a family vacation to Atlantic City. Your friends want to know if you want to come, and tell your mom that I, the father, will be picking you up and riding the train with you. And she's like, okay, fine. So again, because she believes he's an FBI agent, because she believes that he is going to send her to a reform school, because she doesn't want to bring unnecessary anything to her family because her family's already struggling in life, she agrees. Now, on June 14th, 1948, Florence is told by Frank, go tell your mom that my name is Frank Warner. I am the father of 2 of the friends at your school, and I'm taking you with me, if it's okay with her, on a week-long vacation with my family. We're going to go to Atlantic City. We're going to go see Jersey Shore. And I'm going to, if she wants, she can even bring you to the train station. Like, we're going to just hop on a train and go to Atlantic City. So she does. She tells her mom this. Now, her mom actually does allow her to go. And she actually watches Frank and Florence board a bus together. She, waves to her mom, says goodbye. I'll see you next week. And her mom's like, have a good time. Now, her mom actually said she was so tossed on whether she should allow Florence to go because she didn't really know Frank. But at the same time, Florence had been working so hard to be such a good kid. They could not afford vacations. She would never have the opportunity to go do something like this. And here, this family is willing to take her in as like an extra person. And so she's like, I just had to let her go because why would I take that opportunity away from her? Now, in the beginning of this, so this is the part where Frank basically abducts Florence and doesn't bring her back home. Now, in the beginning of the abduction, Florence is actually forced to send her mother letters. And in these letters, she's supposed to tell her mom that the vacation is going to last longer than expected. So that's in June, like maybe a couple days after they go wherever it is they were going, because I don't think they actually went to Atlantic City. And she was forced to send her mom letters saying, no, I just found out we're going to be here longer. Then on July 31st, so now it's been over a month. So it's like a month and a half later, Florence receives another letter from Ella, her mother, receives another letter from Florence and then doesn't get any more letters after that. So then Ella contacts the police because she's like, something's real fucking sus. Like, this is fucking weird. The police decide they're going to take a look at all of the letters that she's received.
First of all, the fact that your daughter keeps sending you letters saying, it's longer than expected. You're telling me that alone wasn't sus?
Yeah, you should be.
You should have been reported that.
The minute your daughter didn't come back after a week, you should have been getting the police involved to get her back. But whatever.
Just saying.
Now, the police decide, let's take a look at these letters. So they do. And when they find the letters, they see that there is a ton of, they're all from the same address. So they collectively look at all of these letters and find that they're all coming from the same return address. So they decide, okay, we're just going to go to the address that is on these letters. So they show up to wherever. And again, it doesn't tell us where. So if it was Atlantic City, they show up to wherever these letters were coming from. And they actually find 2 packed suitcases and a photo of Florence sitting on a swing. So truthfully, the dude was sending the letters realistically from where they're from, which is weird. But no,
I would just not put a fucking return address. Right.
Well, I mean, you can figure out by post offices, I guess, where they came from. But even then, they were able to directly know what place they were staying. So they have been able to, at this point, realize that, okay, there's definitely something way wrong here because now they've got these suitcases, the photo of Florence, but there's nobody around. Now, in the beginning of the abduction, there was a woman named Ms. Robinson. And she was actually referred to as Frank's 25-year-old secretary. So he had this person who would work with him. She was actually paid $90 a week to work for him. However, once they got to Atlantic City, the woman left. And then it was literally just Florence and Frank. Now, Frank spends the next 21 months, so almost 2 years, moving around the country to keep Florence away. Now, they stayed in Baltimore, where Florence was enrolled in a Catholic school under the name Madeline LaPlante. Now, he would actually carry a gun on him to make sure that Florence was not going to tell anybody what was going on. So he would literally bring her to school with a gun on him, threaten her, have her go to school, pick her up with a gun on him, threaten her, take her home. Then in April of 1949, they actually moved to a trailer park in Dallas, Texas. And there she actually attends a school, and her name was Florence Planette at the time. Now, it is here that she actually ends up telling a friend what they considered her secret. Now, that does not mean that I don't think she said anything about being necessarily abducted, but she could have said something like, oh, that's not my real dad, or, oh, I travel a lot with him, or something as simple as my name's not really Florence Planette. It's really Florence, whatever. Now, during this time, she actually also ends up telling a neighbor who already, when the neighbor sees them, she's like, something seems very weird about this relationship. And the girl in particular, something seems kind of off. And so the neighbor kind of starts to befriend Florence. And Florence tells her not a ton, but just tells her enough for the lady to be like, I worry about this girl. I don't think she knew that she was kidnapped. But I think there might have been a chance that she knew she was being molested, is kind of what I'm thinking. The neighbor, her name was Ruth. It took her quite some time to even get close to Florence. And it took her even longer for Florence to trust her by telling her anything. But then Ruth ends up having to move to San Jose, California, because her husband gets a job. And she literally tells her husband, I don't want to leave this girl. There's something going on there and I don't know what we can do, but I need to protect her. And so she tells her husband, she's like, I'm going to try to talk him, the Frank, I'm going to try to talk him into moving there with us. And she's like, so we got to, whatever. So she ends up telling Frank that, hey, if you want to move, we're moving to San Jose and, our girls have become such good friends. And, it doesn't really seem like you're having a lot of luck here for jobs and stuff. So, what if you move to San Jose with us? What if we found a spot for you to kind of stay? We'll help you get on your feet in San Jose. What do you say? Which he actually ends up saying, sure. Sure, I'll go with you. Now, he does actually end up convincing anybody who he had ever met throughout all this time that he traveled that Florence was his daughter. So when he would be in public with her, people would ask who she is. Oh, that's my daughter. He'd bring her to school. Oh, that's my daughter. He kept telling everybody, oh, that's my daughter. And pretty much everybody believed him. I want to make this very clear. During the whole entire 21 months that Florence was with Frank, she was constantly sexually assaulted. Constantly. Most likely on the daily. She was sexually assaulted. She was raped. Then on March 22nd, 1950, Frank went out to find a job. So here they are now. They're in San Jose. He's moved there. He needs to find a job. So he goes out to go job hunting. And it's during that time that Ruth shows up and starts talking to Florence. And that's when Florence goes, I was kidnapped by this guy. He's not my dad. Please help me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So the neighbor is like, okay, yeah. So she brings Florence to her house, lets Florence use her phone. She tries to call her mom, but the line disconnects as soon as she connects with her mom because her mom couldn't pay the phone bill. So it got cut off. So then she tries to call her sister, can't get through to her sister, ends up calling her sister's husband, who does answer. And she basically says please call the FBI. I'm here. This is where I'm at. Please come get me. Now, I am unclear, but I believe in this time, it still is thought that he works for, I still think she thinks he's with the FBI potentially.
Well, that would make sense why she would say, call the FBI,
right.
Not just
call the police,
call the cops,
right.
Or hey, you come get me. They're calling the cops.
Exactly.
Here.
So I think she still might think that he's part of the FBI. And so she says, call the FBI. This is where I'm at. When Frank returns from job hunting, the FBI is at his house. And he ends up getting
Damn, that was quick.
He ends up getting arrested. Now, Florence tells the FBI everything that had happened, including all of the times that he sexually assaulted and raped her. Florence does get reunited with her family on April 1st of 1950. And then Frank is charged under the Mann Act of 1910 for her abduction, which the Mann Act of 1910 is a law it's a law against human trafficking. So just so everybody knows. Now, during his trial, he maintained, check this shit out, that he was actually Florence's father. He maintained that shit. He told that to the FBI at the house. He told that to the judge. He told that to the lawyers. He told that to any police officers that were interviewing him. He was like, I did nothing wrong. She's my fucking biological daughter. Like, she's my daughter.
So 2 things. Either A, he just wanted to try to make it seem like she was lying, or B, he's obviously got something wrong with him because he's a fucking pedophile. I wonder if he kind of like almost made the situation up, but made it so believable that he believed it himself. You know?
I think that is what it is. I think he basically...
Like, you know how sometimes people
yes.
can do that where they come up with this
Yes.
situation or person or whatever, and then
That's
they believe
exactly
it?
Yeah.
That's what
That's what I think.
I'm not saying it's okay, but
No,
that's
but
what I
that
think.
is what I think.
That's why he did
because
that.
he was so adamant that he was her dad. It's not something that was like...
Well, he's probably obsessed with her too,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, I mean, it's very simple. What do? First, they go to Florence and they're like, hey, Florence, is this your dad, Florence? To which Florence actually says, well, my dad died when I was 6, but I do remember who my dad was, and that is not my fucking father. Okay, so she's already like, no. Then they go to like her hometown where she was born, her birth certificate. They all have somebody else's name. So everything that would point in the direction of him being the father was completely like squashed. They're like, you're not her fucking dad. Maury says, you are not the father. So Frank he is found guilty, and he is sentenced to 30 to 35 years in Trenton State. The judge, in this case, actually stated that mothers throughout the country will give a sigh of relief to know that a man of this type is safely in prison. He is probably correct. Now, that's basically like the shits of it, right? And I wish that I could say that like everything ended up happily ever after. Everything was good. You know, she reunites with her family. Her life goes
not how
on.
this shit works.
But that's not how this shit works. So August 18th of 1952. So this is 2 years after she is reunited with her family. Florence dies in a car accident from a broken neck. She was like 15 years old. So she didn't even get to live her life.
Bro, she only got 2 years of fucking
She only got
freedom.
2 years. Well, she got 11 years.
But 2 years of freedom?
Absolutely.
That's not, oh my God.
She got 2 years of freedom of being away from her captor and trying to, you know, comprehend how to move on with her life. So she didn't even get anything. And it wasn't like she wasn't murdered. It was an accident and she died. And it's fucking tragic as shit, man. Like that shit made my fucking stomach hurt because it was like, here we have a good ending. Like, oh, she was reunited with her family. That's great. And then it's like, oh, but she dies 2 years later in something totally unrelated. But here's where it really gets me. This sick motherfucker, Frank, finds out that she has died in a car accident. So he sends flowers to the funeral from prison. And
obsessed.
Obviously, the flowers were never displayed. I actually hope they threw them bitches in the garbage because what the fuck? But like the fact that he even had the audacity to send flowers to his fucking abductee victim.
Because it's his daughter.
Ugh.
Because that's probably what he would...
Dude.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know. So anyway, but they...
Daughter, lover, whatever the fuck he thinks.
They absolutely were like, yeah, no. I hope they put you know what I hope they did with those flowers? I hope they like took them and like ground them in like a garbage disposal or like just made them fucking whatever. Now, Frank LaSalle actually dies March 22nd, 1966 at the age of 69 from arteriosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries. So I hope that shit was painful. And I hope that he suffered because he really didn't fucking seem to suffer at all. Like he got arrested and put in prison. Mm-hmm. And then I hope that at least his death was painful. Now, also a quick side note that I purposely saved towards the end of this. It came out after he died that Frank had not only been molesting, raping, and sexually assaulting Florence, but he also had been molesting Ruth's, the neighbor who who like flipped this bitch on its head, her 5-year-old daughter. And he was doing this during the times when Florence was at school. So he would, because she was not in school yet, so he would, I'm assuming she would go to his house because, again, they were trying to be like friends, whatever. And it was found out later after he died that he had been molesting Ruth's daughter as well. Now, there was a book, as Sierra had talked about in the beginning, there was a book and a movie that used Frank and Florence as the inspiration. However,
just listen to that as the inspiration. Okay?
However, the movie is nothing like the real story.
Or the book, right? Because the movie's based off the book, yeah?
Right. I actually question how this can even be an inspiration, because it's like the author took this fucking horrific, tragic scenario that happened to an 11-year-old girl and almost romanticized it. So the movie, in a quick synopsis of the movie, is basically the only thing that I find that's even similar is the fact that it's an older man and a younger girl. That's literally the only thing, because in the movie, the girl is 15 years old, by the way, not 11. And she like seduces the guy. He thinks she's, oh, she's beautiful, whatever.
Because she reminds him of
his first love. And so he like falls in love with this.
And in the movie, she does seduce him.
Yes. The 15-year-old girl. The 15-year-old girl seduces him. And their whole movie is the two of them voluntarily perusing the fucking world,
because he becomes her stepdad,
because her mother dies, and so he's her caretaker stepdad, and they literally just peruse the fucking world together and have like this romantic love connection. It's, first of all, absolutely grotesque. My stomach turned when I watched it. I don't recommend this movie to fucking anybody. I want to know what the fuck is wrong with the guy who wrote the book, because how the fuck you can even take that from this actual true story is absolutely horrific. But I did also find out when I was reading about it, that book is extremely controversial, which it fucking should be, because it literally almost like makes it okay for a 15-year-old girl to be sleeping with like a 30-year-old man. So there's those parts. The other part is, and I don't mean to be rude. I don't. However, in my brain, as I'm watching this movie, I was like really disgusted by the fact that the guy who plays the stepfather, like he's actually genuinely kissing this girl. So then I'm sitting here going, okay, she must be like 21, but like looks young. No, she was 15. When it was filmed, and this guy was probably in his 30s, if not late 20s. And I don't fucking understand. It was sexual as hell.
Well, I was gonna say there weren't sex scenes like a Pornhub, but no. Like they're like, okay.
There's a part where she's got her hand and she's like bringing it up his thigh right next to his junkarama.
Yeah,
and I'm like, sitting there like, what the fuck?
Like there's one where she's sitting on his lap,
yes,
like reading a comic. And she's like kind of like rocking or bouncing like up and down like on his lap, and then she like starts moaning, and he does too, and you're just sitting there like,
I can't, I can't, fuck? My brain can't. I understand it's supposed to be acting, but I can't understand how actors and actresses can genuinely do things like that where they're making. I mean, there were multiple times where they were making out in the movie, kissing. And she's 15 in real life, and he was at least in his late.
The part that
late
frustrates
20s.
me, once I found out that it was based on a book that was based on a true crime, and then finding out, spoiler, I did know some of the stuff before today's episode that Trisha had told me, but point is the fact that they basically take this book and this movie and glorify the fact that this 15-year-old is like in love and seducing this like 40-year-old man, because also, spoiler, in the movie she like finds this other guy who's probably in his 50s like attractive at a hotel that they're at. She ends up getting not kidnapped, but essentially kidnapped by him. And the whole reason why she goes with him is because she wants to seduce him and she wants to only have sex with him, when he's like, no, basically you're like, your pimp.
He was a pimp.
I'm your pimp.
Guy,
and she said no, so he kicked her out.
He was a pimp, and he pimped out children. That was his literal job.
Like storyline based for the girl is that it's a 15-year-old seducing adult men is basically the gist of the story. And the fact that the guy was just so obsessed with her because it reminded him of his first love that he couldn't basically live without her in a way.
And again, that was the takeaway that fucking author got from this true ass story. And he was asked after he wrote the book, what made you write a book like this? Because again, it was really controversial.
Does he have a criminal background?
And
does anybody know?
They actually, his actual response was, "Oh, I got my inspiration for the two main characters from the story of Frank LaSalle and Florence Horner." And it's like, what the fuck, dude? You took this girl's extremely tragic life story and you, first of all, you flipped that bitch on its head because you made this 11-year-old 15 in your movie and you made it to where it was her fucking fault. You made it to where it was her fucking fault that she's traveling the world with this dude. That is not what happened. She was abducted by a fucking crazy pedophile. And like the fact that that was it, I was just like, holy, which is why after I watched the movie, I was like, when Sarah told me to watch the movie, I was like, okay. And then I watched it and I got done. I was like, I literally looked at her. I was like, well, that was fucking I can't even, why do I want to talk about this? But then I very quickly looked up to see what it, what it was based on. And just like a brief little bit of it, I was like, holy shit, this is not even the same story. And so I was like, you know what? No.
So listen,
I do want to talk about this because I want people to, if any of you have ever seen the Lolita from 1997, just know
sorry.
that shit did not happen like that. That little girl was abducted and raped and forced to stay with this fucking 51, by the way. He was 51. When he abducted her, he was 51 years old.
Also, though, I'm just going to throw this out there for all of you that are all controversial and shit with and canceled Disney movies. Motherfuckers, look at Lolita.
No shit.
Just throwing that out there.
No
that shit's
shit.
way fucking worse. So,
yeah, it's
on
fucking,
all you motherfuckers.
It was, let me tell you. But I did think it was a good thing to talk about. One, it didn't involve murder. Yes, she ends up dying, but it had not. She wasn't killed because of the crime.
She would have lived a long life if it wasn't for that.
And so yes, there was no death in it, but I did think, it was something important because this is again one of those times where Hollywood takes a fucking weird ass story and fucking turns it into this
it's like soft
this
Pornhub.
This is no offense to anybody who's an actor or actress. Actually, that's bullshit. This is to be offensive to anybody who's an actor or actress out there. If you have an acting job and your job is to fuck around with somebody who is under the age of 18 and you're in your fucking 30s, just say no. Or say, get me somebody older, because I'm not understanding why it is okay for a 40-year-old man to fuck around with a fucking 15-year-old on TV, but it's not okay in real life. It's still fucking real life. They're still kissing. They're still touching. They're still doing all the fucking shit.
Bruh, I'm 24 and I don't even fuck around with 40-year-olds.
Absolutely not. So that's, I think, honestly, through this whole thing, that's one of the things that bothered me the most. And the thing that's sad is the main character, the main man character, is a very famous actor. I'm not gonna put it out there. You just look it up yourself.
Okay, I thought he was because he looked very.
He is a famous
familiar.
actor. So it's like to look at him like I don't like you're fucking gross.
Now you look at him differently though.
I can't even fuck. Like how can you do that? Because I even looked at my husband, and because he was watching it with me, and he kept every time the girl and the guy would kiss, he'd turn and look at me, and just like you could see on his face, he was so uncomfortable. And finally, I was like talking to him and I go, I just don't get it. And he goes, what I don't understand. He's like, he said, I am 44 years old and there is no way in hell you could pay me enough to ever try to kiss or make out with or pretend anything with anybody that's even in their 20s. He's like, it is not for me. And so it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck? Actors and actresses. I don't understand. I don't get it. That's not. And again, a 15-year-old girl should not be kissing and making out with and grabbing a man's genitalia area when she's 15 years old, just trying to act in a fucking movie. Give me a break. So anyways, this was the story of Frank LaSalle. And again, if you ever watch the Lolita movie, please know that that's a crock of bullshit. And I can completely understand why the book is so controversial. There was a second book that was written later on by a woman who actually I think she like debunked a lot of this shit because again, it like romanticized this shit. So anyways, that's it. That's where we be at. So again, this was a little bit different. It wasn't about murder, which is sometimes I guess we could say it's kind of more lighthearted because nobody died because of somebody, right? It's not lighthearted because of the shit we're talking about, but it's just a little bit of a different vibe. So not, I still have just as much hatred for Frank LaSalle as I do for, Ed Gein, okay? Like, it don't matter to me. Pedophilia, murder, you're one and the same. If you like the shit you're hearing, if you like how we do the things on Crime Bitches, make sure that you are following us on all of our socials and make sure whatever platform you're listening to on that you have followed or subscribed to us, because you will then get reminded every Tuesday when we post a new episode. And other than that, I think this is just the part where I'm going to say, I will catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.